What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel, and now welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, your taste level is lacking, which has nothing to do with me, okay? Y'all did not see me last week at all. Even after I promised y'all a garden vlog, baby, I threw my whole back out. Like, who knew that was really a thing? Probably everybody except me, honestly. I was rearranging the jungle, and I have some very large, heavy plants in there. One of them being this large form Monstera deliciosa that is, I don't remember how many gallons that the pot is, but it's heavy. And it has a metal fan trellis. Child, I picked her up just fine. I went to set her down, and I felt the fan trellis shift, which made me feel like she was gonna fall. Here's where everything went left. I didn't want my baby to fall. Y'all know mama loves her plants, okay? I did not want her to fall, so instead of bending my knees, I just moved, like, bent forward straight. Baby, when the plant hit the ground, damn near so did I felt a sharp pain, but when I stood up, I felt fine. It was when I went to pick up the next plant, which was so light, probably weighed a pound, and I bent forward to set it down. I saw stars, y'all. Like, I literally got dizzy. I thought I was going to pass out right there. I set her down wherever, okay, and then I went to literally lay down, and I was in so much pain. I took ibuprofen. I'm one of those people that, unless it's like an absolute necessary medication, I don't like taking medicine. You know, mama gonna take a Lexapro every day because she need that. But like pain medicine, if I can tolerate the pain, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it hurts, if it's tolerable, I'm gonna tolerate it. Because y'all know those pain medicines are horrible on your kidney and your liver. So if I could withstand the pain, I'm gonna do that. Run to get my bottle of ibuprofen. Expired in 2019, May of 2019. That's how often I take pain medication, okay? I've had this pain medicine for years. But anyway, Google said it was fine to still take. So I took a couple of those. Mama ordered her some Tiger Balm off of Amazon. They brought it around to my house the same day. Praise God. I was out of commission for days, but not completely in vain, because while I was down, I was in my bed researching. And for all the girls who like a longer video, this is for you. So instead of doing just one case today, we'll be talking about two. I was going to talk about three, actually four, but this video literally would have gone on till who knows when. As you can tell by the title, we will be talking about the serial killers and their torture chambers. So it's like a themed episode, if you will. Now, a lot of the more notorious ones I've already covered. Charles, I think it's Charles Ng, is NG. It's been a while since I covered the case. I forgot how you pronounce it, but him and his partner, Leonard Lake, and their death ranch has been done already. I will link that down below. We've talked about H.H. Holmes and his murder mansion and how he swindled that lady up out of her money down to the pharmacy to fund it. H.H. Holmes is one of the most fascinating men that I have, like, he's been one of the most fascinating forever. The way he was so smart, and he built this massive, like, psychotic hotel with all these dead ends, like you opening doors to brick walls, all of that, like those elements in horror movies, they all came from him. The man was a mad genius. The way he kept firing his construction teams because he wanted nobody to know the whole layout and completely understand his hotel. That'll also be linked below if you are interested in hearing his story and you have not. And then Fred and Rosemary West. Mary was selling cat, okay? She was selling cat about the house. I'm not judging. What I am judging her for is selling it to her father. That was the thing. She had this incestuous brothel where she was a talent girl, and then she and her husband start taking folks' lives. It was a whole mess. That is also going to be listed below. David Parker Ray's toy box. I don't know if I've done a video on David Parker Ray or not, but if I did, I'll also link that below, where he had this trailer that he had completely soundproofed and turned into a torture chamber, and one of his victims managed to get away, which is typically the downfall of most of these. Then of course Russell Tillis, we talked about in the last video before this. All of them have like at least one very sick and twisted element to their situation. His was his booby-trapped backyard with those razor blades and nails poking up from the ground just in case his victim managed to escape. Like how deranged is that? And then as for today's video, we will be discussing Lee Howe, an ex-firefighter who was very much sick and twisted. He reminds me a lot of Gary Heidnick. I've done a video on Gary Heidnick too. That's another dishonorable mention. He targeted like mentally ill or mentally delayed individuals, had them down in his bunker. Lee Howe reminds me of him. His victims are not mentally challenged, but you'll see why they're the same if you're familiar with the Gary Heidnick story. But first, before we get into Lee Howe's story, we're gonna get into Maury Travis's story. And so without further ado, let's just unfold all of the things. Also, mother is going to a pool party in like 2 hours. Literally right after I film this, I have to grab my things and go. So I'm gonna make my makeup look very waterproof. At first I was gonna do the makeup and then just wash it off and go to the pool looking this fabulous, looking like this, because you know this cute enough. But I'm gonna try and see. I have this one size On Till Dawn mattifying waterproof setting spray, and the girls say that this is what allows them to swim like a mermaid and keep their makeup in place. I'm the type of girl that gotta see for myself, okay? You gotta make me a believer. So I'm gonna do some silicone-based waterproof products today. We're gonna see if the girls can really swim out here without transferring product all over the place. First, before anything though, I'm going to spray some sunscreen. Well, I'm gonna spray it on my hand and apply it on my face because, girl, mama burns, okay? Maury Travis was born on October 25th of 1965 in St. Louis. His parents are Sandra and Michael Travis. They live in the Carr Square public housing complex just north of downtown, and they reside there until Travis is about 11 years old. Now, I'm not from St. Louis, and I don't know much about it, but Google said that was the projects. And that's no shades of the projects. I'm just mentioning, drawing a picture. Now, they leave there in 1976 when his parents purchased a nice, simple ranch-style house in Ferguson, which is a better environment than their previous housing situation. And things are overall looking up for the young family. They settle into the neighborhood just fine, and then they start building relationships and making friends. One of their neighbors at the time describes Travis as being a very quiet, very withdrawn and shy boy, very respectful, and he would sometimes come over and mow her lawn without even being asked. His nickname is Toby, and by all accounts he is regarded as a pleasant child with a very soft heart. The monster that he grew up to be was a shock to all that had known him. Now, despite how things are looking up for the family and how much better they're doing, Travis's parents divorced just 2 years after they moved. Maury remains in the custody and care of his mother full time, and although he attends several different high schools, none of them have pictures of him in the yearbook, which is kind of strange. But considering the fact that he is said to be this super withdrawn child, I guess it kind of makes sense. He probably skipped picture day. His personality between childhood and turning into a teen, it doesn't change much. He's still very much withdrawn. He's still very shy, extremely quiet, and antisocial. But them be the ones you gotta watch. I believe that Maury is this way because of what's going on inside of his head, and he knows it is not normal. While on the surface, Maury appears to be this super pleasant, wouldn't hurt a fly type of guy. He is not as innocent as he is perceived. Death is something that he has always been very fascinated by, and from the age about 13, he has been fantasizing about murder almost obsessively. It is on his mind so much that he begins to act out some of these urges on small animals that he finds in the neighborhood, including one of the neighbor's dogs. After graduating high school in 1985, he joins the Army Reserves, no surprise there, and he serves for 2 years working as a medical aid and dental assistant. Once those 2 years are up, he goes on to work for a trucking company for a very short time, and after that he volunteers at a local nursing home. All of what he does is very random. Now, at age 22, Maury realized that I guess his life was very random and really didn't have direction, so he decides to enroll into Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. But just as things are kind of, on the right path of him becoming somebody, he picks up a nasty little cocaine habit, which does not pair well with being a broke college student. Desperate for money, he robs 5 different shoe stores in the North and West St. Louis areas. And this spree takes place in March of '88 over an 8-day span. He hits these 5 shoe stores, and he does so while he is at home on spring break. Now, he is easily identified when a witness gives a description of him and his car, and when the police go around there and pick him up, he pleads guilty, explaining to the court that he had only used a plastic toy gun to carry out the robberies, and said that he was so strung out at the time he barely remembers anything else about the crimes that he committed. I guess he was trying to get, you know, a little sympathy, a little leniency from the courts, but I don't think they really care about that. Now, in addition to that, the judge also receives several letters of support from people who know him or think they know him, saying that his actions were not indicative of his true character, that he really was a good kid, and it was just the drugs that really had his brain clouded. The letters encourage the courts to offer him help instead of a harsh punishment. 6 months after his court date at his sentencing, he tells the judge that he has since gone to rehab and was now clean and has really been spending his time as of late getting himself back on track to becoming a contributing member of society. Y'all, even former U.S. Representative William L. Clay is amongst the people who write letters to the judge asking for leniency. Ironically, Mr. William L. Clay says, quote, "Since January of 1988, Mr. Maury has conducted himself in such a manner as to pose no threat to society. I am pleading that he be given leniency and probation with the condition of voluntary service at a charitable community agency." And with all of that, child, the judge wasn't trying to hear it. He sentences Maury Travis to 15 years in prison. And this sentence comes down just 4 months shy of his 24th birthday. Jail was not the place for Maury. He was not liking it at all. 2 months into his prison stay, he writes a letter to the judge pleading with him to reconsider the sentence and describing the conditions of the prison as, quote, "excruciatingly tormenting to say the least. It was never going to be vacation." He also says in the letter that daily and hourly he contemplates ending his own life, which, child, he should have. I mean, of course, considering what he went on to do. And he says to the judge in this letter that he mostly just spends his entire day in his cell and cries himself to sleep just about every night. He mentions the homosexual rapes that go on in the prison. Now, he doesn't say that it has happened to him. He says that he hears it happening to others. He says that the living arrangements that they have are cramped and uncomfortable, and that the food is poor. It's prison, babe. In his close, he begs the judge to replace his current 15-year sentence with a 120 to 180 day sentence because that'll be enough for him to have learned his lesson. If only it worked that way, sir. At the very bottom of his letter, he says, "You, sir, are my last hope. Please give me another chance in society." And then he writes, "Please," all caps, 3 exclamation points. His sentence was not reduced. He is forced to adjust to his new environment. He gets him a little job inside the big house, working in the janitorial and the food service areas. And realizing that he was not getting out of there, Mark just decides to keep a low profile, put his head down, and do his time. It did not sound like that worked all that great for him, because he does rack up 13 conduct violations within the first couple of years of him being there. All of them were listed as a minor. I'm not sure what they were, but they weren't anything too crazy. And on June 14th of 1994, after serving 5 years and 3 months, he is granted parole. He moves into a duplex where he shares a wall with a neighbor, Linda Harrison. And according to Linda, he is a great neighbor. He is quiet, he is friendly, he keeps to himself and is never a disturbance. He was actually quite thoughtful in her eyes. Now, the basement of their unit is shared, and it's where the washer and dryer is. They have to share it. One evening, she was down there already and he was coming down the stairs. He frightened her. He was so apologetic when that happened, and every time thereafter, he would make sure he whistled a little song as he was coming down the stairs to let her know that he was on his way down, so he never startles her again. Her son is also very fond of him. The two of them often sit outside chatting, drinking beers together. They had a nice little bromance going on. Things were okay for Maury, but despite how terribly they had derailed his life previously, Maury falls back into heavy drug use. And again, things take a left turn. Just 4 years after paroling, he violates the terms with possession of drugs. But by 1999, he was back on the streets. And in the summer of 2000, he gets a job working as a waiter at the restaurant located inside of the Mayfair Hotel near downtown. And there, he has several conversations with a co-worker, Dave, who finds the conversations to be quite odd. One, Maury mentions one day that if he ever needed to dump things that he did not want to be found, East St. Louis is a good place to do so because there are not many police officers there. And Dave is like, dump things like what? Maury says that a friend of his had a car that was stolen and was later found burning in East St. Louis. And that's how he knows. But just a few months later, bodies begin turning up there. And when they do, Maury asks Dave's girlfriend, who works as an intern for News Channel 30, if the station had done any stories on prostitutes being killed. He explains to them that he had friends who knew about bodies being dumped there, but when Dave's girlfriend goes back to her boss at the station and inquires about this, he has no knowledge of it whatsoever. He had not heard of that at all. And at that point, it was kind of just brushed under the rug, like Maury just didn't know what he was talking about. July 31st of 2000, the body of 61-year-old Mary Shields is found in East St. Louis, and Dave and his girlfriend Julie wonder whether or not this is a coincidence that a body has now been found in East St. Louis, or if it is not a coincidence. Maybe Maury was right about it being a spot where you could dump things that you didn't want to be found, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he had dumped Mary there, right? It's a conversation, but there's not really enough to say definitively or to think that he had been responsible for this, right? Little do they know, their inkling was right. Maury Travis has settled into a house at 1001 Ford Drive where he has completely transformed the basement into a sex dungeon / movie studio. When he is not down to the restaurant waiting tables, he is strolling the stroll and picking up sex workers to take back to his house where he does crack with them and then locks them inside of the basement where he then performs all kinds of sick acts on them while he tapes it. He tortures them both mentally and physically, and in some cases Maury forces them to engage in these strange rituals. He would dress them up in like these white dresses and these blacked out sunglasses and has them dancing around. It was very, very strange. This is a still shot from one of the videos showing how he would have them bound to that pole in the basement. It was very, very sick. Fortunately though, 4 months after Mary is found, Maury again violates the terms of his parole and is locked up again. He spends just a few months in jail, locked up from November 29th, 2000 until March 19th of 2001. So not long at all. And as soon as he is released, he is right back at it. Just under 2 weeks of him being out and free, the remains of Alyssa Greenwade are found in Washington Park. And just 3 days after that, another woman is found slain and discarded in East St. Louis. About a month and 10 days go by before another gruesome discovery is made. On May 15th of 2001, the remains of Teresa Wilson are found. And just a week after that, Betty James is also found, and there are tire marks on her leg. Police keep photos of this in evidence, hoping that one day they would be helpful in identifying who the person was that had done this to her. The footage from Maury Travis's case is so disturbing, so stomach turning, that the officers who have seen it were all later ordered to receive psychiatric treatment. Even just the dialogue is very haunting, very disturbing. I'm about to insert a bit of it for you to listen to. I did find it a bit hard to listen to, so if you don't want to hear it, I say, fast forward about a minute if you want to spare yourself. Now, in the first video, he can be heard saying, "This is the first kill, number 1. First kill was 19 years old. Name, I don't know. I don't give a fuck. First kill was nice."
This is first kill, number 1. First kill was 19 years old. Name, I don't give a... First kill was nice.
Now, the next portion I'm about to play comes from the two aforementioned victims, Teresa Wilson and Betty James.
I can't hear you what you're saying. Say it clear.
You are the master that pleases me to serve you. You are the master that pleases me to serve you.
Stop, boy.
You are the master that pleases me to serve you.
You sorry?
Yes,
You sorry about what?
everything.
Jumping in the car with a motherfucker you don't know? Huh?
Yes,
You sorry?
yes.
You want to say something to your kids?
Mom, sorry.
On June 29th, the remains of Verona Thompson are found just 16 feet away from where Teresa had been found the month before. And 1 month after her, Yvonne Cruz is found in East St. Louis on August 25th. And with this victim, a semen sample is able to be collected. On October 8th, Maury disposes of 33-year-old Brenda Beasley in East St. Louis as well, and she too has DNA left inside of her. And for the remainder of 2001, no more discoveries are made, but Maury has remained active. January 30th of 2002, a woman's remains are found in a wooded area of St. Louis. This woman had obviously been there for quite a while. There is nothing left of her but bones. On March 11th, more skeletal remains are found in the exact same area, and just 17 days after this person, on March 28th, another set of skeletal remains are found in Columbia, Illinois, but police believe this to also be the work of the same person. No more discoveries are made from the end of March throughout May. Now, Maury is enjoying his spree almost as much as he is enjoying it being talked about in the media. During these couple of months where no discoveries are being made and it's not being discussed in the media and things have quieted down, while he knows that he still has victims out there for them to find, Maury decides to stir the pot a little bit. He drafts up an anonymous letter that he sends to a local reporter with a computer-generated map marking the location of one of his undiscovered victims. And the letter also teases him that there are more out there. Now, the reporter obviously turns over the letter to police immediately, who follow the map to yet another set of unidentified skeletal remains. They are of a woman, and they are exactly where the person said they would be. Now, what the letter also leads them to is Maury Travis. They are able to trace the IP address of the computer that was used to generate the map. They arrive at his home on June 7th, early in the morning. I'm talking about like 7 a.m., and he is not happy about it. He answers the door, obviously fresh out of his sleep, very hostile toward the police officers, demanding them to let him know ASAP why they are there disrupting his sleep early in the morning. Nothing like the nice, sweet, passive young boy that he had been described to be. Maury was visibly upset. They bring up the string of murders, the letter, and Travis is like, what does this have to do with me? He is still, pretending and carrying on this act that he does not know why they are there at his doorstep. And they tell him at that point that the person that made the letter had done so from his computer. And so that is why they're there. At this point, he invites them in to have a conversation. And for an hour and a half, he attempts to keep control of the conversation. He changes the subject often when they get to asking questions. Now, during their little back and forth and conversation, the search warrant for his house comes through, and they let him know that they now have a search warrant for the premises. They also informed him that a forensics team is on the way to look for trace evidence inside of the home, if there is any. And child, he does not take the news lightly. He starts cursing. He becomes even more angry than he was when he opened up the front door. At that point, they know that they'll be finding something, just judging by his reaction alone. And they were definitely right. Down in the basement, on the floor, on the walls, underneath the carpet, and on the bottom side of the rug, they find blood stains. And this is blood belonging to 6 different individuals. Upstairs, while the team is conducting their search in the basement, detectives present Maury with a folder that has several pictures of the women they believe to be his victims. And without any context, they ask him if he's familiar with any of the women. He looks through them. He's like, yeah, no, I've never seen any of these women in my life. They don't press the issue. They're just like, okay, whatever. The conversation goes on. But about 10 minutes later, after the conversation has shifted to something else, he goes, can I see the pictures of those dead girls again? Joe, nobody told you they were dead. And the detective lets him know that. He says, Maury, we didn't tell you that any of these girls were dead. We just asked you if you know any of them. At that point, Maury drops his head. He is silent for a couple of moments before saying to them, come on, I'll take you. And they're like, take us where? He gets a little attitude. He says, you know where I'm taking you. This is what you're here for. This is what you've been asking for. Now, just to be short and clear, they ask him, like, are you telling us you're taking us to another victim? And he says, yes, she is in East St. Louis. The detectives pile up in the car. They have Travis in the back seat. They're driving per his directions, and just as they near the bridge, Maury tells them, I've changed my mind, just take me to jail, which completely catches them off guard. There's a little bit of back and forth between he and the detectives. They're trying to change his mind, and he is adamant that he no longer wants to go to the location. He's like, no, just take me to jail. I'd rather just go straight to jail without passing go or collecting $200. Maury is taken into the station per his request, and he is interrogated for several hours. Now, during his interrogation, they offer him a beverage. Oldest trick in the book. He accepts it. He asks for, a little piece of Diet Coke. They give him the can. He empties it, throws it into the trash can inside of the interrogation room. A little bit later, they have the trash can emptied, but they collect that can to get his DNA off of it and compare it to the DNA that has been taken from 2 of the women. It is a match to both Yvonne and Brenda. At this point, they seize his car, and the tire tread on it matches the tire tread found on the leg of Betty James to a T. So that is 3 victims that they can definitively tie him to. Meanwhile, back at the basement, the forensics team, they notice that there are a lot of cassette tapes. One catches their eye, and the title on it is Your Wedding Day. The beginning of the tape is of an actual wedding ceremony, but a couple of minutes in, it cuts to a woman chained up to the wooden pole down there. And what he does to that woman is so brutal that everyone on the team that had seen it is ordered to participate in psychological counseling by the chief of police. After reviewing the tapes, the number of victims jumps to 12. 12 women that they can undoubtedly tie him to. They also find plans of his to expand the basement for more victims. He wanted to build 2 cells, and he had a list of all of the things they needed in order to make the cells, and also what he would need for the women in order to hold them captive for an extended period of time. A few hours after his arraignment on June 17th of 2002, hearing all of the evidence they have stacked up against him, Maury knew that there was no way he was going to beat this case, and he did not want to spend the rest of his life inside of prison, so he takes the bed sheets of his cell and ends his own life. He also leaves behind a letter to his mother apologizing for all of the pain that he had caused her. In the letter, he tells her how he had been fantasizing about doing things like this since he was 14 years old, and says, quote, "You were the best mother a man could ever have, but I've been sick for a long time, sick in the head since I was about 14. He goes on to say, I don't know why, I was just sick. I've never felt normal or happy at any time in my life. I think about the life I led and what's ahead of me. This seems to be the best solution for all involved, especially me, because I won't spend the rest of my life locked up, or worse, let them kill me with a needle. Tell Grandma, Marina, James, and everybody I love them dearly, and I love you the most. You know that. Forever, your son." Now, he doesn't mention any of the victims or the crimes directly. Neither does he express any type of remorse or, feeling bad for what he has done, the pain that he's caused anybody else aside from his mom. What's so interesting? He worked as a waiter. He encountered so many people who had no idea that they were interacting with such a vile human being. Now, unfortunately, the number of his victims, the true number, we'll never know for sure. But judging by their investigation, he was active for 2 years, and they are confident in at the very least 17 victims. Now his little story does not end there. 12 years later, after he is taken the highway to hell, the house that he lived in is now back on the market for rent. Katrina McGaw moves into the home unaware of its history, and of course the owner does not bother to mention it during the tour or the signing of the lease. One evening, after Katrina has gotten all nice and nestled in, she is watching television, and a documentary comes on the television that just so happens to feature her house and the horrors that had taken place literally right underneath where she sat. It showed the wooden post that was still downstairs in the basement. Her 2-year-old daughter had been playing on this wooden post. Katrina is freaked out and upset, and she wants out of this lease immediately. She contacts the landlord, explaining her situation, thinking that the landlord would be sympathetic, understanding, but no. Sandra, the landlord, tells her that basically you signed a contract, a law-binding contract. You're here for the duration of your stay, or you're going to pay out the lease. Like, those are your only options. Katrina is not understanding. Like, you're a woman. Why are you not hearing me when I'm telling you I'm uncomfortable living here, especially with my young child? And Sandra is not trying to hear it because Sandra is Maury Travis's mother. When Katrina finds this out, she goes to News Channel 4. She gets them involved because she is desperate to get out of this lease. They cover the story. The news personnel comes out to talk to Sandra, and she claims that Katrina knew the whole history. She had already disclosed everything to her. This was no surprise to her. Now, I doubt she told that lady that. Like, that's not something you forget. Unfortunately for Katrina, by law, Sandra was not required to disclose such a history. They only have to make tenants aware of physical defects of the home. Nothing else, no ghosts, no dark past, none of the things. Neither Sandra nor Katrina are willing to back down, which is crazy to me. Eventually, the St. Louis Housing Authority gets involved. They side with Katrina, although it was not illegal for Sandra to withhold the house's history. They found it wrong ethically to do. They did understand why Sandra would want to leave that little tidbit of information out, especially if she isn't legally required to disclose it, and also mentioned that they understand her desire to put like the whole thing that happened with her son, who he was, behind her in the past and leave it there. But more than that, they understand Katrina's discomfort living in the house. Like, come on now. Let the mama out with her baby. She is able to break the lease without any type of penalty, and Sandra is left to either re-rent it or move in herself. Child, she ain't even living in the house. How she want somebody else to live there? Would y'all live in the house? She had the little cleaning people come in or whatever. Y'all gonna live there? She might have had the carpet pulled up, a couple of little faux wood tiles put down on the floor. What if the rent was cheap? What if the rent was only like $400, $450? All utilities included. You staying in? Is there a price tag on it for you? Let me know. I'm not staying there. All right, now let's get into the second case, which is that of Lee Howe. This happened over in China. Now, Lee has a wife, okay, and he is struggling to take care of them financially. He is an ex-firefighter. There were not any details online explaining what had ended that career, but by 2009, the 31-year-old husband is working as a clerk and has become desperate for money. The clerk position is not paying enough. Lee becomes aware of how lucrative the online industry is, and this is before the days of OnlyFans. Sex been selling for a long time. Now when he finds this out, he feels like he likes to hunch. This will be the perfect endeavor to bring in more income, but he does not have plans to enter into the field in the traditional sense. He probably didn't have the package for it. Quiet as it's kept. In August of 2009, Lee here purchases a basement residential property, and over the course of the next 12 months, spends all of his spare time making alterations to it, digging and expanding it. He digs a tunnel that is approximately 23.6 inches in diameter, 13 feet in length, and leads to an opening. And this opening expands to 2 small bedrooms that are separated by a wall but don't have a door. He also puts up these thick metal doors. Here's one of them at the entryway, and yes, it looks raggedy, but mind you, he didn't pay much for it because he didn't have much to pay for it. When he is done, he has turned his basement property into a 215 square foot dungeon that he plans to use to make money online by streaming not only adult entertainment videos but with a very disturbing twist. And now at this point, he just needs a few not so willing participants. In October of 2009, he lures his very first victim, a woman that he picks up from a karaoke bar. That's what it's described as, but it felt a little red light district-y the way they described it. And another article I read referred to the girls as sex workers. So so he propositions the young woman money for an adult exchange back at his place and lures her down to the basement. There he has his camera equipment set up and he forces her to participate in a home film with the promise of allowing her to leave after the fact. When it is over, he instead chains her up there and does not allow her to leave. Over the next 2 months, she is there inside of the basement by herself. He comes down to make videos with her. He is constantly filling her with a false promise that one day he'll let her go. But in December of 2009, 2 months later, when he shows up with yet another woman, it is very apparent to her that he has no plans of letting her go. Victim number 2 is 18-year-old Vaughn. Vaughn has also been picked up from a karaoke bar, lured to the basement under the false pretense of a little adult exchange for money. For him, it was very convenient to target like women who did sex work, because he doesn't have to forcefully take anybody back to his dungeon, potentially kicking and screaming. He just propositions them for a paid date. They come along willingly, and for him, it is just easy to do. Just like Sarah, Vaughn is used to make these very disturbing videos. He violently assaults these women and forces them to perform different acts on him. He takes suggestions from his viewers and whatever sick, twisted fantasies they have, he'll act out for, of course, a fee. He sometimes has them just do strip dances for the customers, and his audience pays him well to view this footage. He makes it available on a platform called Tencent QQ, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's a Chinese instant messaging app or web portal used by approximately 563.8 million people a month as of March 2022, and he has a whole pricing system on there. 50 won for 30 minutes, or you can pay 100 won and watch for 50 minutes. He is making thousands before you know it. Now here is the outside of the building, the door that leads down to the basement property, and all of these people live above his little dungeon, completely oblivious as to what's going down beneath their feet. In order to spend more time with the women, Lee comes up with this lie to tell his wife. He tells her that he has gotten a second job working the night shift as a security guard, and with the influx of money that's coming in, it makes sense to her that he has picked up a second job because he has second job money. Him being at this other job during the day and having to spend some time at home with his wife leaves the two of these women together for quite some time. More than enough time for them to put their heads together and think up a plan to escape. Lee is very much aware of this, but he has a plan to ensure that that does not happen, because the last thing he wants, of course, is for them to join forces and knock him upside his head and run out of there. Lee begins to pin the women against each other. He lies to them individually about the other, manipulating them, trying to cause discourse, and it actually works. So more often than not, there is conflict between the two women. After months of being there, Mary, the first woman that he captured, she becomes pregnant. And so her desperation to get out of there, it is 10 times what it was before. So in the months of July and again in August of 2010, she catches Lee slipping while he is down there making other alterations to the basement and knocks him over the head from behind. Now, unfortunately, both times he manages to overpower her and handcuff her to the bed. Even with him threatening her life, Mary refuses to submit to him. And with this being the second time it had happened in August, he decides that something has to be done by Mary. She's just too unruly. So he uses Vaughn, the second woman, to do his dirty work. He promises Vaughn her freedom if she takes Mary's life. The two of them already, like I mentioned before, has all this discourse. They don't like each other. So it does not take much for Vaughn to agree to do this. She wants out of here too. Desperate for her own freedom, she strangles Mary. Afterward, Lee has her help dig a hole underneath the bed to bury Mary in. Needless to say, Vaughn is not granted the freedom she was promised. Vaughn remains on her own there in the basement for several months. Lee becomes her only connection to the outside world, and with that, the two of them, well, she forms a trauma bond to him. So there's a huge shift in their dynamic. Whereas initially she was afraid, she desperately wanted out. Now she is beginning to form a liking for Lee. It's very much Stockholm Syndrome. She has also become cooperative in the video making, and either this has turned Lee off or he just wasn't satisfied with the amount of content he's able to produce with just her. So he sets out to lure in victim number 3. December of 2010, he detains 19-year-old Jang using the same method as before, and he also uses what happened to Mary as a cautionary tale to keep both Vaughn and Jang in line and afraid to pull any type of stunt. He also wants to keep them in a state where they're too weak to try to fight or escape, so he feeds them very little. He only gives them food and water once every 2 days, and at some point gives them a computer to entertain themselves. They're able to watch videos, play games, but the computer has no access to the internet whatsoever because the last thing he needed was them to send an email down to 911. And Lee also does not clean the dungeon that often. There's only so much that the women can do to tidy up the small space. They are having to use the bathroom down there, eat down there, sleep down there. Here are some photos of how it looked down there, and the smell was horrible, especially with the rotting corpse beneath the bed. In 2011, during the months of March, May, and July, he lures another woman to the basement, bringing the total women down there to 5, but 6 victims total, just 1 is deceased. The new 3 women are 20-year-old Zhang, 16-year-old Kai, and then 23-year-old Ma. And the dynamic amongst the group is very interesting. Vaughn, who is the second captive and has been there obviously the longest of the women that remain, kind of wants to stake claim over Lee. She competes with the other women for his attention. She's very jealous of the other women at times. Eventually it gets to the point where all of the women are competing for his favor because it was just easier on them if he was happy with them versus him being unhappy with them and withdrawing even more food or being abusive or just being extra rough. It was like a survival tactic. He, of course, is still manipulating them, playing his little mind games, pinning them against one another. He later says that he attempted to make the women fall in love with him. It's such a twisted dynamic. He is also like romanticizing the situation and making them believe that he has like love for them. Over time, not only are they arguing and fighting amongst each other, bickering over small things, they are even arguing with each other about who gets to sleep with him and participate in what video on what day. Eventually, the women are referring to him as hubby and are very affectionate with him. Now in May, Kai had begun showing symptoms of having an STD, one that makes her unable to perform. So at this point, he sees Kai as completely useless. She's the 16-year-old. He can't just simply let Kai go because she knows too much and it risks his whole operation being brought down. So he keeps her there, frustrated with her presence and her uselessness, and treats her way worse than the other girls. One evening, he has all of the other girls beat her, which was very easy to convince them to do considering how toxic the environment had become. The subsequent treatment and abuse of her is extreme. He won't feed her. There are times where she is begging for food and he forces her to consume feces and urine. And then one day at the end of July, he orders the group of women to again physically attack her. And because by now she's endured weeks of not being fed properly and all of this other torment, She passes away later that same night. Again, he enlists the help of Vaughn, captive number 2 that's been there the longest. They dig a hole for Kai and put her in it and cover her with wet cement, hoping that this time it'll keep down the scent. A 6th woman is added to the mix, and she was not a sex worker. She was a saleswoman who was equally easy to lure down to the basement. And by this point, he is 2 years into his little business, with his wife still not having a clue what he was really up to. Lee is making thousands online from his videos, but he still feels like he has the potential to make even more than that. In August of 2011, Lee decides that he's going to offer a new service to his clients: the option to have in-person interactions with the women. He first takes Vaughn because she is the most loyal to him, and another one of the women to a local hotel to meet up with a couple of clients that have paid for the experience. And he is able to travel with the women to the hotel and back to the basement without them breaking bad on him. After a few more trips back and forth, he is becoming more confident that he can do this, and he decides to rotate the women instead of just having the 2 original ones. On September 2nd, he takes 3 women instead of just the 2. He has Vaughn still, 20-year-old Zhang, and 23-year-old Ma. His clients show up, they do their business, they pay for the services, and Lee spends the night at the hotel with the 3 women. But early, in the wee hours of the morning, 23-year-old Ma seizes the opportunity to escape him. She runs out of the hotel room and goes to call for police. She tells them about the dungeon and its location, what room number he is in. They send officers to the room to rescue Vaughn and Zhang, and they also send officers down to the dungeon. The smell inside of the dungeon was so overwhelmingly disgusting. At this point, it was not well ventilated at all. There are 2 rotting corpses buried in the floor. There is feces and urine all over the place. It is just disgusting. Zhang was actually really excited when they got there, thinking that Lee was returning. She was calling out to him, excited to see him, because she had been left there since the day before, but it ended up being the police. And I don't know if she was happy about that or not. I mean, you would think that she would be, but with Stockholm Syndrome, it's a chance that she wasn't. Now, Lee, once he realized that Mom was gone, he did not stick around, baby, to be caught. He had fled the hotel room and gone to his sister's for help. His sister gives him 1,000 won for him to be able to go on the run. But they catch up with him just 3 days later on September 6th. And his sister is also arrested and charged for aiding and abetting a fugitive. Now, get this. Once they interview all of the women, Vaughn is placed under arrest for killing Mary. But with all things considered, she is given 3 years in prison. Now, I feel like the girls should have put their heads together, stuck together in this moment, and just said that he killed the girls. But they told the truth, which was that they all helped. And so with that, the other women are also charged. A lawyer volunteered to take their case and represent them pro bono because she felt like they shouldn't face any punishment due to the circumstances, but the courts disagreed and they also refused to allow her to represent them. Instead, they appointed the women a public defender who basically was just there to go through the motions and the process and not really advocate for them as clients. Now, the courts were not completely heartless. They are lenient with them and give them probation instead of any jail time to serve. And as for Lee himself, he is sentenced to death. At the time of his arrest, his wife still had no clue, no idea, and they had an 8-month-old son. He appeals his conviction, but the Supreme Court of China chooses to uphold it. And on January 21st of 2014, after meeting with his relatives, his family for one last visit, Lee is executed at the age of 36. And you know what's really crazy? The Chinese government and authorities, they forbid the media from talking about Lee's case, anything that happened in the basement, the dungeon, none of the things. No journalist, no news outlet, no media personnel was allowed to post anything about him or his crimes. And that is pretty much it for both cases. I am eager to know your thoughts down below. Please let me know. I will let y'all know how this makeup holds up in the water, baby. I'm about to be out there flipping like a fish. Please like the video before you leave. Subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. Child, my mouth's so dry. I haven't had a morsel of food all day. It's supposed to be barbecuing, girl. I hope it's something ready when I get there. I'm not even gonna excite myself. And it has a metal fiddle. Metal fiddle. What is that, girl? Of course, is it Robert? What is his name? Then of course, Russell Tillis poking up from the ground just in case his captor. He is the captor. What am I talking about? Maury Travis was born on October 25. What? I gotta get this done. I gotta get to my girl's birthday party. Come on now, pull it together. They settle into the relationship just fine. They start building okay, no, what? Without even being to ask. He also, what did I just say? Look, and how much better they're doing. Not Travis, he is child. Travis's parents, while on the surface, Maury appears to be after serving high school, Mary Shields is found in East Atlanta. Did I say East Atlanta? I meant East St. Louis, girl. Child, are you waterproof, girl? Where is my waterproof mascara? This is the scary part, girl. The mascara is really the girl that likes to act up. Actually, because of that, I'm gonna skip mascara. And she is his only captor. 50 minutes for 100 yawn. Is it Vaughn? Yawn. What the fuck? How you say it? Let me see. Cause girl, they tears me up sometimes in the comment. How you say that? Yuan. Okay, Yuan. She catches Lisa slipping. He feeds the women what was I about to say? He first takes Dewan, his most loyal, his bottom B. No, I shouldn't say that. She was a victim. Oh my gosh. He first takes Dewan because she is the most loyal to him.